Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to session 2. It is April 3rd, 2020, and we have some fun, exciting time here for the next 2 hours here in the WNFC virtual football camp. I'm Bo McMichael with the WNFC. Glad to have everybody with us. Want to hand it over to OJ. OJ, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Bo. How's my volume? Can you hear me okay?
I can. I'll get that. I was jamming to some music, so it's always nice to have that going in the background.
All right.
So,
Well, let's see if everybody else can hear us. Can anybody out there on
give us a
Facebook
thumbs up
Live,
on the
anybody
Facebook
who's
world.
doing cap, can they give us a thumbs up or a yes, you can hear me?
Hopefully
I think
we
we got a pretty
have
good delay. We got a pretty good delay today, Bo.
technology is a wonderful thing. So we do the best we can with what we have. So here we go. Let's see what it comes across. I still have it counting down here, so that's what the confusion part
All right.
is.
So
it's just we're getting off.
Everybody
Yeah.
can. Yep, everybody can hear me, Bo.
Everybody can hear you.
It's
So we're
go time.
getting ready, getting started with our host. I'm going to hand it over to OJ. OJ, go ahead and introduce our person.
All right. Well, welcome to camp, everybody. I'm glad that you could make it today. We got a wonderful treat for y'all. I think that it's important for everybody to know that the purpose of this is for everybody to get better in every single way, at the team level, at the player level, at the coach level. I want to remind anybody that if you have any topics for us to cover over the next 2 weeks, please don't hesitate to send us a message. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce offensive assistant for the Washington Redskins and a badass in her own right as a player, as a coach, Jennifer King. She's not only a 2-time national champion in women's football, but she's also as a head coach, as a women's college basketball coach. So Jen has a wealth of knowledge. Coach King has a wealth of knowledge to help us get better about how we conduct our practices and what we show as a team and as coaches in practice. And I'm so excited to learn some more. So without further ado, welcome, Jen. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. Good to have some interaction with people.
Right. Well, I'd like to tell everybody for each one of these, the format is going to be different. You guys, we're going to have agendas coming out. There's going to be player sessions. This session is going to be way more conversational. So if you guys know Jen King, then she's very conversational. So if you didn't have a chance, she's going to talk through some pointers that she shared in her video today. So Coach King, go ahead and talk to us about what you think, why you think practice is important, and what you can tell us about building an effective practice plan.
Yeah, thanks for joining and having me again, guys. Hopefully everybody had a chance to check out the video. Obviously practice, man. I mean, it starts at practice, guys. We all know this, coaches, players, that's where it starts. All greatness starts right there at practice. And, I'm bummed that everyone has started practices and not able to play right now, but just wanted to go over a few things with you from my video and hopefully have some conversation, have some questions, and we'll have a good time doing this. And if you watch the video, you know there are a few things that I touched on. I'm going to kind of go through those bullet points for you. Some of the more important things that I feel as far as creating practice. Obviously, it's super important player-wise to come to practice with a great attitude. Okay, it starts with the players. Obviously, the coaches need to come with great attitudes as well. But that those attitudes combined is what make practice super productive. It makes super fun. Practice isn't always going to be fun, but we enjoy playing football and we want to come to practice as well. So when you bring that right attitude and really bring that attitude of wanting to get better and being a great teammate, those really lead to some really good and productive practices. So the first bullet point that I talked about was just being efficient in everything that you do. I'm super big on keeping people active in practices and just being efficient. So, make sure you're not wasting time doing things, or while you're working with someone else is on the side not doing something. So really have a plan as to how you want to utilize everyone at some point, so people aren't just sitting around. Because obviously we know sometimes during special teams periods, you may have players just kind of on the side because they're not involved with that special team. But that's a great time for them to start doing individual things, whether it's some ball handling or whatever you want to talk to them about or work on the side. That's something that we did a lot in Carolina. So that's a great thing to do as far as having that mindset. What can I do? And also talked about in the video, sometimes we're not always going to have a bunch of people there as far as staff or things like that. So one thing that you may want to do is utilize all the bodies that you can as far as managers and having a support group there at practice to help you get through things more efficiently. So you're not spending time moving drills and doing things like that you can have someone else do while you're moving along and being more productive at that time. So I think it's super important to utilize that. Sometimes you may have players that just didn't work out for them to play that year. It's a great way to have them around at practice and to still be productive, and they get to see how things work. So maybe they can join the team later on. So while we go through those things, be mindful that it doesn't matter how big or small your staff is or how big or small your team is. You can have super productive practices, moving through different things and making sure people are getting better each and every practice. So as I said, have that mindset going in, no matter what, that you're going to get better and you're going to have a great practice. So coaches, one thing I'm big on is just having a written practice plan. Make sure you have your plays scripted out, making sure you're maximizing your practice time and reps for everyone. So I know if I go back and especially look at my basketball coaching days, I literally have every practice plan that I've ever written. I still have them in folders, and I can always go and pull them up and see what we did that day, because I had a mindset of what we wanted to do that day to get better, which is super important as well. So when you go into those practices, you know, okay, today I want to improve our inside run, or I want to work on red zone or black zone or whatever we want to work on. Have that mindset and those scripted plays to help you improve upon that. Okay, on either side of the ball, whatever you're going to work on defensively, you can do the same thing. Offense is the same way, but make sure you have a clear plan and not just kind of out there winging it. Or, I think, a lot of coaches, our famous line is, okay, one more time, and then we run it like 3 or 4 more times. But sometimes, you're not going to get it perfect that day, but keep working at it. You may need to move on just to make sure practice is moving along and you're getting to everything that you want to get to, which is really important. And then another thing is just creating that environment of competition. I talked about that at the end of the video. Competition is everything to me personally. And I think that the good teams that I've been on, I think competition has been crazy at practice, and that carries over into the game, because you'll know if you're going to be a dog in practice, or you got to be a dog in practice, you have no choice on Saturday but to go out and be a dog on the field. And I think that's super important to create those environments within practice for competition. I know when I was a basketball coach, we had a rule. At any point, if someone felt like they were faster than somebody or they could do something better than somebody, we stopped practice and touched them up right there. If you're faster than her, we're going to find out right now. So we made them race. So whatever they wanted to do, but it created an environment of competition, which the players loved. And I think sometimes you can incorporate that into football as well. So what we did, we kind of put together a mock practice plan. OJ, if you could throw that up so everyone could see that.
Coach, let me see.
All right, cool. So obviously this is a very kind of vanilla practice plan, but I want to go through it and kind of touch on some things and maybe some ways to expand upon this. If you watch the video, during team dynamic stretching, I'm big on creating situations of ball handling. So while people are stretching, why not toss balls to them if you have the people available, or they can toss them to themselves, which I think is very important, just because you never know when the ball is going to be in your hands. Obviously, you know your skill positions, more than likely going to be handling the football at all times. But what happens when that ball bounces to an O lineman, or the D lineman has to scoop and score a fumble? If they're not used to handling the football, they're not used to running with the football, you never know what might happen. So I'm really big pre-practice and during that team dynamic stretching, getting as many footballs in people's hands as possible. Moving on to your indie sessions, I talked about it again in the video. I love the individual period just because it's a great way to hone your craft. And obviously, sometimes you may not have the numbers or the staff that you need. That should not deter you from doing those individual periods. Maybe create those captains, or have a position captain that can help lead those indies. So maybe meet with those before practice or chat with them just so everyone knows what's going on and what you want to get done. And also you can combine the indie group. So if you want your quarterbacks throwing the running backs or throwing the receivers or throwing the tight ends, they don't always have to be together. One of those groups can be working on something else. And then obviously the quarterbacks can rotate and also have their own individual period as well. So, as we move into full offense, I say full offense. Obviously, if you want to have a 7-on-7 period or a 9-on-7 period with offense defense, just to kind of get the juices going a little bit, I think that's something that I like to put early as well, because right away you're going into something that's kind of competitive off of that. So I put full offense, full defense. But obviously, if you guys want to create a situation of competition right away, you can also do that. So 7-on-7s, 9-on-7s, whatever you want to do. 1-on-1s, you can do at the end of indies if you want to start getting those juices flowing as well. Great way to create competition is 1-on-1s, obviously. And everyone loves to do 1-on-1s.
Hey, Coach, one question that I got here is, how are you deciding when to change up the order of your practice plan? So right now you are giving us a template, but how do you know when that practice plan is getting stale? Like, what do you base the things that you're doing on? Can you share that?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you go off of your team's need. What's the vibe of practice? Are people falling into that lull where they know what's coming next? Like they know we're going to do this every day at this point. And sometimes that's good for teams. Sometimes it's not good for teams, So if you want to change things up. And you can always throw a curveball in to keep things interesting. It's not necessarily that you have to have the same script every day or the same order every day. If you feel like you need to change things up, definitely don't be afraid to change it up. Like if you feel that the energy that you need in practice is not there, don't be afraid to skip down to a competition period and just throw it in there right away to kind of tune things up to get people where you want them to be. So I hope that helped.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Yeah, but back to what we were saying about the full offense, full defense, handle it however you want to. And then moving into specials, I like to have 2 special teams periods just because you can work on a lot of things. And obviously, sometimes the special teams periods, sometimes the women's football seem to fall by the wayside. And then on the field, things go bad. And it's because you haven't put that work in that you need sometimes. So I think it's really important to put the time in specials. And it may be 5 minutes, 10 minutes to work on technique or work on a team period with your specials. And also, as I mentioned earlier, people who are not involved in the specials, this is a great time for them to work on something to hone their craft and not just hang out on the side and drink water and talk to each other. I think it's a great opportunity to do that. So find something that you want to do as a player, maybe that you can work on. Maybe if you're a more advanced player and in the indie period, you're not getting something that you really want to work on because you kind of have to work with the group, but you're a little more advanced. This special teams period, if you're not involved, it's a great opportunity to pull a coach to the side or pull someone to the side to help you work on something that you may have not gotten to work on earlier. So always be thinking as a player, how can I get better during practice, whatever you're doing? Never waste a rep, never waste the opportunity to try to get better. So then obviously moving into your team O, team D, what do you want to do that day? What do you want to get better on? What's on your plan? Is it going to be third down? Is it going to be short yardage? What do you want to do? And that's a great opportunity.
Hey, Coach.
Yeah.
Before you go on to team O and team D, we got a great question up there that's asking, is there an algorithm to how many practices per week and for how many hours each week you should practice? Like, I think it'd be nice to hear you talk about, obviously what the limitation might be in the pros, but what would you suggest to a women's football team who have limited access to their athletes, coaches, and staffs?
Yeah, I think obviously every team that I've played on, I think we've practiced twice a week, maybe 3 at most. So obviously you're not going every day to practice. So I think one way that I've been a part of to really utilize practice time is to use all of your resources as far as technology. So you may not have an install period on the field. You may do an install period the night before on computers or send emails out to show a new formation or to show a new play. So really utilize that time. So when you get to that field, you may only be practicing twice a week, that you can really get out there. As far as having like a perfect number of practices or, how many times a week, obviously it goes on what you can do. Obviously we would love to practice every day, but it's not feasible with what we do right now. So, but maximize your time and really do what you can. I'm not going to say that you have to practice 4 times a week to be good. Everyone I've played for has practiced twice a week, and we've done just fine on the field. So it's all about just maximizing that time that you do have.
Cool. One more question out there. I think it's important to just get to the questions, if that's okay with you, Coach.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
All right. So would you focus on your weaknesses as a team or your strengths? Like, are there certain practices where you dedicate all to your weaknesses or all to your strengths? Like, how would you suggest, as coaches young and old, what our practice plan should focus on? Thanks, Mike from KC Glory, for that question.
Yeah, I feel like you got to work on both, because obviously, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. So, you got to work on your weaknesses until they're possible strengths. But then if you're neglecting your strengths, they're no longer going to be your strengths because you haven't been working on them. So I think it's really important to create a balance of being able to work on both, and obviously identifying what you feel your weaknesses are to be able to work on those things, and, really work on both things to try to, build a complete team.
Yeah, and one more, it's not necessarily a question, but I think it's important for you to touch on because Karen, I'm not sure what city she's from, Bockelman. She said that they had a drill where they made a circle. It's kind of like Bull in the Ring, where other people cheered them on. Can you give us some feedback of how much of a percentage of your practices should be about fun, and what percentage of your practice should be about getting shit done? Like, is there an equation that you've used over your time, whether it be basketball, football, or in the pros? And does that look differently depending on the time of season?
Yeah, I think sometimes it does depend on the time of season, but I think the fun is just created through being there. I know I always just love being at practice because I love football. I didn't care if we had quote unquote fun things scheduled, because obviously the putting in that work sometimes is not a lot of fun. But I don't know. I didn't put in a lot of fun things. I was hoping people were happy to be there and happy to be playing. I know sometimes later in the season, especially in basketball, you would throw a curveball in there and, have something fun, have some fun competitions for them just to kind of change it up a little bit. But, as far as scheduling, like the fun things, they can turn the competitions into fun things. That's pretty much as far as the fun extent that I went into. And obviously coaching at the higher levels, I think the competition does bring the fun to practice. Obviously it's because those guys love to compete against each other, and it's really really cool to see.
Cool. Sorry, Coach. Okay, I just want to make sure we got through those. Let's finish going through the practice plan if that's what you like.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think we stopped at the second team, O Team D, as far as getting what we want to get it done, accomplished, and having your scripts, the plays, offense and defense. Obviously, sometimes if you're fortunate enough to have 11 on 11, be able to service each other as far as a kind of a scout O, scout D situation. And then your second special teams period, whichever you want to do, whatever you want to do. It's not mandatory that you do punt return. You don't have to do anything. What do you need to work on that day to get better? And just don't neglect anything, just because, I talked about in the video, my worst fear as a coach, especially as a head coach, was having a player experience something in a game that we've never practiced. So obviously create special things for people. And those special periods, sometimes if you want to break it up into a special situation versus a special team period, I feel like that's also important as far as ensuring everyone knows the rules. Because there are some small rules, especially in a special teams game, that you never really see, but it's a rule, and it's sometimes you can benefit from it just from knowing the rule and making sure everyone knows what's going on. So I think that's super important to make sure people are aware of the rules and little nuances that can happen during the game. So if something happens, they go to that Google search in their head and there's not anything there. That's the worst feeling in the world. If something happened, you thinking and there's nothing coming to your head. So obviously to have something come to their mind and that, so they can react on the field and hopefully turn a possible negative into a positive.
That brings up a good point, Coach. And I know a lot of people out there have wondered about it. Do you recommend that if you can't, that you bring an official out to every practice, and if you're in a position that you're limited on budget, how do you feel about handling officiating when it comes to Team O and Team D?
Yeah, I mean, if you're fortunate enough to be able to bring officials out to practice, that would be awesome, and even if you're not, able to have them at every practice, can you have them out at one practice to kind of go over some things as far as, rules that people may not know, some of the more uncommon things that people may not know. I think that would be awesome if you're able to do that, at least once if you're not able to do it every time.
Perfect. Thanks.
Hmm. Yeah, and then I always personally like the special situations or competitions at the end, just because you end, you've been through practice, people may be tired, or whatnot, but then the competitions, you kind of bring that energy, bring that juice back, and whatever you want your competitions to be. Is it first O versus first D? From the 5 yard line, from the 2 yard line? What do you want to do? Obviously, you can create a bunch of different situations for that to create competition. Usually, I like the competition to be O versus D, obviously, because obviously the offense always think they're better than the defense. Defense always think they're better than offense. So, like I said before, if that's how you feel, we're gonna find out right now. So create different competitions, but also make those competitions beneficial. It's not about just out there having fun or whatnot. You want to have benefit out of whatever that you do.
Bo, we can hear you talking, Bo.
Oh,
Go ahead, coach.
oh, it's all good, man. Yeah, but like I said, this is just like a mock um, practice plan, and obviously there's a lot more that can go into it, and that's kind of up to you guys, coaches. What do you want to bring? What do you feel like you need to work on? I am big on making sure that you do get 7-on-7 in, that you do get a run period in to work on those small things, and I think that helps develop players individually a lot to get those extra reps in, and especially develop the pass game in 7-on-7. Obviously, it's really good on offense and defense. So, like I said, usually a practice would have maybe, I don't know, I would think 10 to 12 periods. But this is 8, and if you can get through in 8 and feel like you're getting the things you need to get done, that's fine. There's no perfect plan, and obviously this is going to be tailored to the team. And obviously the people, how many people you're getting at practice, which is more important. And like I said, ladies, when you come to practice, really have that attitude and mentality that you're there to work, there to get better, and bring that energy from the very beginning of practice. And sometimes, I've been in a situation where you're going to play both sides of the ball. So, you still bring that juice in practice and be excited to be there. We get to play the greatest game on earth. And, it's super exciting to be able to go to practice. I was always super happy to be able to practice, and, never take those for granted. So really go out there and enjoy yourself. And I don't know if we have any more questions or not, but it's kind of.
Yeah, we got a couple.
Yeah.
So one I think that's really pertinent to this audience is how do you keep motivation up when attendance is low? Someone said we struggle because the sport is still new to a lot of players. So what would you recommend in terms of practice planning for a team that has low numbers or low attendance? How would you adjust the practice plan to make sure? I think you told us that you played on a team with very low numbers. Can you talk through some of the drills that you guys did, or some of the things that you did to have effective practices with such small numbers?
Yeah, the one thing we did with the low numbers, well, we did a lot of half line stuff, and we were unable to really go 11 on 11, but we used the bodies that we did have to be, as I said, as efficient as possible with the numbers. You can't help that sometimes. Obviously, if you have the numbers and people aren't coming to practice, that needs to be addressed first. Why aren't people coming to practice? Is it the practice time that's not working? Or is it just that dedication level? And obviously, if it's the dedication level, that's something you got to handle, because you got to want people that want to be there as much as they can. If it's a numbers issue and you just can't help how many people are there, you have to utilize the half lines, or really create those really solid indie periods, so you're not getting as much teamwork, but individually people are getting so much better. And obviously that'll make the team better, when everyone comes together.
I think one kind of funny question, but really serious. And I know we had this struggle when we were on Team USA a lot, with two linemen in particular. But how do you keep the competition level to a place where it doesn't overflow and disrupt your practices? Like what kind of mechanisms would you share with a new coach or a coach that's just having that problem in order to stop things from always escalating? Is there some kind of discipline? Is there some kind of fun? Is there some kind of refocus? And basically, you know who I'm talking about. It's always the defense's fault. But
And they hit people in practice all the time. I think that, that's a good question, but at the end of the day, guys, we're all on the same team, man. I think that's one thing I always try to bring it back to. Obviously, you want that competition and that battle against each other, but at the end of the day, we're all on the same team. We're in it together. So to really escalate things too far against your own teammate, that's kind of crazy. At the end of the day, it's not about trying to flex on your teammate or show who's better. You want that healthy competition, but you want to get to Saturday and then you can bully somebody else. That's when you get there. But, really, if you're on the same team, guys, you got to cooler heads have to prevail. Obviously, it's going to be people you like and you don't like on your team. But at the end of the day, you guys are on the same team. You really got to find a way to make it work.
So I thought I saw a question out there, and we talked about this before, and I think it is super helpful for you to speak on this, Coach, because how should players, like let's say women's football players, play this game on average 2x longer than men do? So you have a lot of people that practice a lot of years. What would you say to the veteran players out there on how they prepare and how they can ensure that the team has an efficient practice? What are the things that the players should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think it's super important for the vets to take leadership roles. There's always new people coming in. There's always inexperience coming in. I think it's super important for vets to take that leadership role. And it's part of showing people how to practice, as far as technique, taking care of your teammates, not trying to hurt your teammate, but also working at the same time. And, there's sometimes a fine line in football as far as being a good practice player, as far as taking care of your teammate, not taking them out if you get an opportunity, and just, keeping people off the ground and things like that if it's not a full contact situation. So I really look to the vets for leadership. And kind of guidance to show people how to practice. And, I know sometimes, vets don't want to practice as hard or as much just because, you've been doing it for so long, but you can still show people how to practice and kind of show them the right way to do things.
A question from Mary Rowe. Do you encourage players to train extra sessions in addition to the team sessions each week? And if so, what should be their focus? And I think, and as another piece of this question, Coach, do you think the focus should change depending on which part of the season that you're in? So, do you encourage them to do things outside of practice, and what should those things be, and should they change depending on the time of the year?
Yeah, I think it's super important to put that work in outside of practice, just because, as we mentioned earlier, you're only practicing 2 days a week or 3 days a week. So, you really want to create, build your body, build your endurance, build your muscle. So if you're lifting, if you're running, or if you want to work on football stuff, that's fine. But I really think it's important to do something other than just practice, just because there's so little time. Say if you're practicing 2 hours for 2 times a week, that's not a lot of time that you're putting into football. So I think to obviously to be good and to be successful, it kind of turns into a lifestyle as far as working out and things like that. And then, as your season goes along and maybe, your body's hurting a little bit, you also want to create that level of, rehabilitation. What works for you? Is it getting a massage, or is it taking care of your body more than always pushing it? Because it's getting broken down on Saturday. So obviously Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you don't want to re-break it down. You want to help building it back up. So hopefully when you get back to Saturday, it's back to its peak performance. So I think it's super important to, in season, to kind of maybe change your routine a little bit and find what works for you. I think that's the main thing.
Cool. We got another question in here from Mackenzie Brooks. How can veteran players establish their veteranship without stepping on coaches' toes to ensure the efficiency of practices? So I guess what Mackenzie's asking from Mac from Iowa/Nebraska. What's up, Mac? What she's asking is, as a veteran player who might have gained experience and knowledge, how can you, in a good way, support your coaches and get involved in practice planning, that kind of thing, without disrupting the culture of your team?
I think it's really important to have a good relationship with the coach or with your coaching staff to really create that bridge between player and coach as far as their vision, what they want. And then that player can help, lead that vision as well. I think it's very important for the players to be on the same page as the coach, whether you agree or not. And obviously, if you don't agree with it, that's something that you can handle outside of practice. But as far as a veteran, I feel like it's super important for you to be on board with what the coaches are doing and not go against that. I think it's you have to show that unified face to really get everyone on board. Because obviously, if you have a coach saying one thing and there's a veteran player saying something else, what are the younger, inexperienced players going to do? Do I go with the coach or do I go with this player? So I think it's super important. Obviously, the coach trumps what the players' beliefs are. And I think that player really has to get on board and then use their message to really bring along the team and bring along the younger players.
All right. Coach, last couple questions here. So do you have any suggestions or recommendations on where people could go to find good technology or a good practice plan template? Like where's your go-to? You said you keep every practice plan you've ever made. Where do you go to do that? Do you use Excel? Like what tools would you suggest to people?
Yeah, I think for my basketball, template, I just kind of Googled basketball practice template and just found something that I liked and just printed it off and just kept using it over and over again. So whatever it works for you. Obviously, I think it had spaces for time, what you wanted to do, and even a spot for what you wanted to get out of it and things like that. So tailor it to whatever you want to do. What do you need to see on your practice plan to remind you or keep you locked in on what you want to get accomplished with the things that you're putting in. If you need to have a reminder, then have a space obviously for that. And Excel is a great way to create your own if you don't want to just copy another one. Go create one and find whatever you like, what you don't like. You don't need to put it on there, but whatever works for you. It's super important to have something that's comfortable for you that you can work with, and obviously you're gonna be using it a lot. So whatever you're comfortable with doing, I think find something that works and just kind of roll with it.
Cool. Well, Coach, I'm not seeing any other questions out there. Do you have any other points and tips that you want to give to the women's football community to help us get better, or to focus more on how do we build more efficiently in practice or even outside of practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest thing for women players, just continue to learn, continue to get better. Like, this is so awesome what we're doing now during this time to be able to learn, and I'm constantly learning. Everyone should be constantly learning about the game, and just because maybe you've played for a while, there's always something you can learn, or new techniques or new things to learn to kind of broaden your knowledge of the sport. So even if it's a new position that you want to learn, or even if you don't want to learn a new position, learn what they do and learn what's important to them, because it's amazing how much they can help you as a player. If you're a running back, if you're able to know what linebackers are doing or what they're thinking and things like that, that helps so much to really make you a better player. So I have a quarterback session coming up in a couple of days. We're going to talk on some things about that, but it's super important to really know everyone's responsibilities as a player. So don't just get pigeonholed into whatever you do. Really expand your knowledge of everyone. And when you do that, you become such a good player, more rounded player, and you'll be more usable for the team.
Well, Coach, I know it's a busy time. You guys, Coach Callie was saying yesterday that you guys at the league level are just rolling out playbooks and that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate you taking the time and giving back to your roots, to women's football, and coming and sharing your knowledge. I know I got better today, and I feel like everybody who's watching got better. As you said, as Coach said, we're going to have Jen King back. As y'all know, she was an amazing quarterback, probably still is, for many years, and she's going to come back and share her experience at the quarterback position next week. So we're going to get her out here. Maybe we can get her on film standing up and showing if she can still slang that thing a little bit. Get warmed up, Coach. But no, so next week, Coach King is going to come back and talk to all the quarterbacks and even the quarterback coaches. I think everybody, quarterbacks, wide receivers, DBs, anybody that's interested in quarterback play should come back and listen for that session. But thank you so much, Jen King. Good luck to you this season. I really appreciate you coming through.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it so much. I'm glad I could help you guys out, and I'm interested to tune into some session myself. So thanks for having me again, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you. All right. Well, that was Jen King for part one of session 2 in camp. We thank you guys so much. We are going to switch gears here and move on to our last presenter of the session. So if you guys need to get a glass of water or take a bio break or something like that, I expect you to do it quickly. As you would at any other football camp, we are moving fast and giving you a lot of information. I'm so excited about this next presenter. But more importantly, I want to talk to you guys as the next presenter is getting prepared about what's coming up in tomorrow. We have a treat for you guys tomorrow. We are going to be talking to Coach Rick Rasmussen of the Utah Falcons, who runs one of the most intricate, hard to stop offenses in the country. He has the top rushing offense in the country and has for a lot of years, multiple championships, multiple accolades. And so we're going to have Coach Rick on tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central, so be prepared for that. But tonight we have the man, the myth, the legend, Dion A. Lee from the Las Vegas Silver Stars. He has built some powerhouse organizations in Las Vegas in women's football and girls basketball. Now he is pioneering 7-on-7. For those of you that might not know, he's coined some terms in women's football that we're all using today. He's going to tell you more about that as a person who's been building women's football teams for over a decade and been through every league and every situation, every up and down in women's football. He has made it through them, and right now he is pushing at all levels of women's sports to make sure that women's football lives a very long time. So without further ado, welcome Coach Dion Lee from the Las Vegas Silver Stars.
Thank you very much, OJ. It's a pleasure being here. It's been a minute. I've been away from women's football for the last 4 years, but I haven't been gone completely. I've been in the background doing some other things. So therefore, if we're going to get started, we can get started. Okay, definitely that. So again, for those who don't know, I'm Coach Dion Lee. I've been around this game since 2004. As a fan, when I first saw a women's championship football game out in Long Beach, California. And I couldn't believe my eyes. And I told Aubrey Duncan of the Los Angeles Amazons that I got to get me one of those teams. And I just happened to be moving to Vegas. And that's how I got involved in women's football. After watching the Diamonds beat the Wisconsin, I forgot the Wisconsin team, but it was in Long Beach. He brought me to that game. And I fell in love with the game. And it's so pure. So my topic tonight, again, is recruiting, tips to grow and build a football team. I built several football teams, not only here in Vegas, but across the United States in helping out. I've been a consultant as well. But here we go. This is my little background right here. I got 40 years involved as an athlete, as a coach playing this game. 14 years involved in the women's game. Like I said earlier, I've been an advocate. I've been a team owner. A head coach, an assistant coach, helped start the All-Star games, helped start the Team USA situation on a different end. Okay, I've been that rebellious guy, and it always didn't go my way, but it got things started. You know what I'm saying? I didn't always go the right way, but I went the way to make it happen. And that's part of who I am. My middle name is Make It Happen. I'm founder of the Girls Football Association, which you see here in the background, where we're promoting flag football for young ladies across the United States to be a sanctioned sport. And we need your help as women football players. And that's going to be part of my presentation as well, how it can work hand in hand. Okay. And then also I talk to teams, new teams in different areas, how they get started. And that's what my presentation is all about. So let's go ahead and move forward with this. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. Okay. We're going to talk about creating events, getting the word out, marketing ideas. These are the things as owners of teams. These are things that are players of teams that you need to be heavily involved in. We don't have the money that the NFL has or the XFL, millions of dollars of promoting. So we have to do our self-promoting. Okay. We're going to talk about how to find players. We're going to talk about being transparent and set expectations. Okay. That's one of the things I did with my team. I set high expectations for my team. My team didn't always buy into it, but then when they went elsewhere, they came back to me. They understood what I was setting. Okay. We're going to talk about building a positive team culture. Without a positive team culture, you're not going to have a team for long. There's going to be many teams in one city because the culture was no good from the start. And that's why you have continuous teams in the same city. And then we're going to talk about building a feeder system because that's what it's all about. It's about learning the game at a young age, falling in love with the game at a young age. As you saw in my video, I fell in love with football at age 3, 4, 5 years of age. And then I was able to play the game at age 5, even though I played flag from age 5 to age 8, and then I played tackle. We have to build a system to help feed our accession of being women football players. Okay. So let's go ahead and just start off from the get-go. What does it take? Once you realize that you're going to start a team, you find out that when the first week of league is going to start. Now you need to backtrack from the first time that league is going to start to say, hey, we need to set up a date. I like to do anywhere like 6 to 9 months is my open window for tryouts and all the other things that I'm going to talk about. But once I realize that, I need to go back 6 weeks from that. Okay. The 6 weeks from there is our finding a venue, be it a local school, a park, a restaurant, a banquet room, a sponsor, so that we can start now getting the word out and promoting this interest meeting. It could be an interest meeting. It could be a camp. It can be a clinic, whatever. You want to get a 6-week lead time. Okay. And what we're going to talk about is, is it going to be a tryout? Is it going to be a combine? But my thing is, if I'm going to start a new team or I got a team for next year, it ain't got to be new, but I want to be consistent at putting information out there and getting bodies in seats so they can hear what we're talking about. All right. So that gets us to the next slide that you got right here. Okay. Getting the word out, marketing ideas. I did 25 years in the music industry. Okay. I was a marketing guy that market music that nobody heard to make them superstars that you hear on the radio. And we had to think outside the box. Right now, this is a great time to be in the women's football world due to the fact that you have so many avenues to do marketing and promote. For me, I'm old school, flyers, posters, right? Radio, going down to your favorite radio station, friending the DJ, getting on the show, maybe a community awareness show, or, work with the DJs to get on to talk about your organization. Same thing with TV, get you a nice press release, send it to the news, and see if you and your owners or your coaches or your captains can get on the air and talk about what's coming up. And then, of course, word of mouth, right? Word of mouth is the best free advertisement in the world. All right. From there, we're talking about social media. We got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, of all things. You doing the dances and all that other stuff, right? But that's a way to get the word out about your event. Join other women athletic/fitness groups. Join other women football teams that are out there so they can be tied in so that when people are doing research on your organization, they can see that there's other organizations out there. And that's been the biggest fall for women's football over the last 20 years is that nobody knows that women play tackle football. Nobody.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, we got a question. So in terms of getting the word out, because there are a lot of ideas that you hear floating around, and I think everybody has the idea in their head, but can you talk about resources? So do you staff this? Do you try and go find somebody on your team who's in charge of marketing? Do you leave this to your players? Is marketing belong to 100% of everybody? Like, how can you show some ideas that you've used or that you've heard other people use successfully about how to do these things and what resources to use to make them happen?
Definitely that. For me, it was by myself because I was able to come from a music background and be able to promote, major recording artists. We had to be creative, and then I would go out to my street team. So I utilized my organization just like I did in the music industry, where I would set forth what people can do, of course, asking, who know how to do press releases, anybody have any connections at the radio station, anybody have any connections at the newspaper, and those things. Once we were able to do that, we were able to pull our resources together and then put forth the plan of promoting and getting the word out. Peer-to-peer marketing, asking the ladies to, within their circle group to promote. So if I have somebody who works at, say, LA Fitness or 24-hour Fitness, hey, can you get flyers put out on the cabinet? I mean, not on the cabinet, but on the counter. And then you working there, you get to see the more athletic women who are serious about their conditioning things. And then, of course, you ask, we look at it this way, each one bring one, okay? Each one brings one.
Yeah.
So if we got—
Hey, Coach, one other question about that. You talked about people at their workplace. Can you share what your opinion is on— I work at workplaces like nightclubs, or there's a lot of LGBTQ ABC affiliated individuals in women's football. Do you encourage the women in your team, the coaches in the organization, to use those networks to also recruit? How do you feel about using your personal networks?
Yes, again, your inner circle is your most important group of people that you can attach yourself to. Now, there's a balance to that as well. If you want to be competitive in football, you need athletes. You just don't need bodies. So it all depends. Are you putting together a team because it's socially fun and we just want to go out there and have some fun? Or are you putting together a competitive team? And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit later in the presentation. If it's just for fun, you're looking for bodies. You know what I'm saying? But we all know that football is not for everybody. And injury is high prone. So you just can't get off the couch and say, I'm a football player. You know what I'm saying? So again, within your inner circle, you want to be able to bring the best of the best to the table. And with that, my next slide is up. Talking about finding players. Okay. How do you find players? You ask players and coaches to recruit within their inner circle or their influence, like we just talked about, their workplace, where they go out and have fun, where they go out and party, whatever. Because there's athletes all over the place. But for me, I'm a competitor. I want to win. I want to put the best product out there, especially that I'm promoting women's football. It has to be football. It can't look like what the world, the stereotypical world of what girls imagine look like playing football. It has to look like real football. So I'm going to the college campuses. I'm looking for those young ladies who play intramural sports, because on the college campus, there are more females that have played high school sports. It just wasn't good enough to get a scholarship in that particular sport, but they still want to compete, and football is
that's a really good point, Coach. Let's double tap on that a little bit, because I think that's some low hanging fruit that a lot of us, there are schools in every city. So even if you're a small city, you got some kind of college or some kind of university. So can we talk about how your intramural sports, or I think Angela Sneed is making the comment, college campus sports clubs are good. Let's talk about how, right? Because we all know this exists, but can you talk us through methods that you've used? Do you start with an email campaign to someone? Do you go to the campus? Do you talk to campus officials? Tell us how we should go about getting engaged with these organizations on university and college campuses.
The best way to go is in person. People use their phones and text, and it's kind of not personal. But if I'm the owner of my team, I'm going to go to UNLV, which is 7 miles away from my house. And I'm going to go get a meeting with the intramural director of sports. And I'm going to sit down with them and say, hey, is it possible that I can put flyers here in the sports athletic building? Is it possible that I can get the schedules of the sports so I can come and possibly recruit some of the athletes, and then work that relationship. You got is recruiting is about relationships. So if you get into the college and you have the relationships from the head folks that are in charge of the sports there, and they're on your team and on your side, then it's more likely that they'd be willing to allow you to come in and make a formal presentation like what we're doing right here to help recruit. They might give you an opportunity to set up a table or a booth at some of the games, so that you can recruit. So again, it's personal. You got to get in person. You might introduce yourself through an email, but I like to show up. And if the person, has a schedule where you got to, set up a meeting, then go ahead and put your name down for a time and come back. That's the most important thing. You got to go and touch people. Okay. My wife tells me all the time, yeah, social media is great, but if you're not touching people, it ain't really happening. So you got to build that relationship on the college campus, to be a JC campus, as well as the high schools. You got a lot of high school students who are seniors that play basketball, run track. What else? Play volleyball. See, can you come on campus and introduce some of your ladies that play football? Go through the football coach, the head football coach, and let them know that, hey, women play football too. You might even get some of those coaches to come out and help you, because most women's football leagues are during the spring. So you might get a chance to get some coaches out there who might be able to get some of the younger athletes to come out and participate. Okay. OJ, go back to the last, you went ahead on me with the finding players. So there we go. So again, going to the adult leagues is another thing. I worked 8 years in Parks and Rec, and for women, there's not a lot of recreation for women. It's co-ed. Softball is like the number one. They might do volleyball, but those are still athletes that have played maybe at a higher level, maybe played AAU ball, may have graduated college, but they didn't make the pro teams. These women still have the ambitions to want to compete. That's why I love introducing them to the new sport of football, because it's something new. They've always wanted to play, and now they have the opportunity. Okay, so attending other sporting events, setting up booths and tables, passing out information, going to youth football games. There's a lot of mamas out there that's yelling at their sons that are playing in football. Those are the first ones I approached, the ones I was allowed. It's like, yo, you yelling at your son to do good. What about you? Can you play some football? You got to show them, you know what I'm saying? Or, so that was a part of being personal and being able to recruit. My first year with the Showgirls in 2006, we had over 100 girls try out. I tied it in with the sponsor, with Rockstar, the energy drink. It wasn't the best combination, but they gave me money. I gave them exposure. The song Party Like a Rock Star came out. Bam, we were putting that together. You know what I'm saying? So we're using marketing techniques to get other women to come out. And that got us on the radio, follow along with the song. So again, it takes some action and some movement. But if you want to compete at the highest level, and I think that's what your league is doing, as well as the other leagues, you want to have a high level of athletes out there. So you got to go where the high level of athletes are at. And you got to go to the colleges, you got to go to the JCs, and you got to hit these seniors that are high school, Is there any questions from that point?
No questions.
Okay, cool. Okay, my main thing is, once you set the meeting and you've done your 6 weeks of promoting, now it's time to whoa those athletes. Okay, so you got to be transparent and set the expectations. Jennifer, JK was just talking about time for practice. This is when you tell them, hey, this is the commitment. And this is part of women's football right now that you guys are taking it to the next level and trying to get paid and some other stuff that, if you're out there for free, that's your time. So your time is very valuable. Excuse me. Okay. But if they're getting paid, then it's an obligation. You need to be here 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. So at this point in time, at this meeting, you need to set and lay out your expectations. How much time commitment is it going to be? What is the cost? What is the equipment needed? A code of ethics, I think that's one of the most important things. I think your league has developed a code of ethics between players and coaches and maybe players as well. But that was something that I was doing in 2006. People weren't too friendly about it. But like I said, I've been a part of a football family all my life. And football is family. So we have to have a code of ethics, okay? At that meeting, you want to create an agreement or a one sheet saying, hey, you understand these are the things that we're going to be doing, sign off on it to understand that you know that we know that you know, okay? You want to introduce your coaching staff. That's another most important part is you got to have competent people coaching. You know, you just can't have anybody off the street that think they know football. I mean, you got to talk about the safety of these women. You have to talk about, you know, possibly getting hurt, you know. So you got to take that in consideration when you're putting together your coaching staff, okay? And then you need to highlight, you know, the benefits of being on the team. So if you're a team that's been around and you got film footage, you want to highlight videos showing the women that, hey, here's women that can play. You can be just as good, if not better. You know, even if you're a new team, you can get highlights from YouTube to showcase the fact that women play football. Okay. So again,
hey coach, we got a really, really good question. I think that everybody has been trying to answer for a very long time, and more sponsors are coming into women's football. So I think it's changing those questions. But two questions here. One from Ebony Chambers, and she's saying, what's the motivation of the newly recruited player for buy-in when most are scared off when you start talking about the kind of money that a lot of women's football teams ask of individual women? How do you address that when you're recruiting?
My method is do something that has never been done before. You know, that's where I came up with make her story. You know, here's an opportunity for you to do something that you were told that you can't do. You see, I'm a little bitty guy. My nickname is Flea. So I've always been told I've been too small to play football. That made me more hungry to be bigger, stronger, faster, and better once I got on the field. You know, so that is the carrot. The carrot is do something that you haven't been able to do because you've been told no. You know, once money comes in, once sponsorship come in, and then contracts come in, now you're going to be weighing the whole money aspect. But right now, it's the passion of playing a sport that you've grown up and that you've loved all your life, but haven't had the opportunity to play. Okay, that's been the motivation for the 15 years that I've been involved. I know you guys are trying to take it to the next level and include payments and stuff like that. But it does cost. You know, what you put in is what you get out of it. You know, is there some things that some of the teams can cut down the cost? Yeah. The more people you have on the team, you know, if you got a 50-person roster, now you can divide everything up by 50. You know, if you got a 20-person roster, you got to divide it up by 20. So guess what's going to happen? The team that only has 20 players is going to have to come out of pocket a lot more money than those who got 50 players. So that's why recruiting is important. You got to get numbers. It's power in numbers. I've been saying that forever. It's power in numbers. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, you answered it, Coach. We have one more, and I think this is a really good question. This is from an international player in Western Australia, Mary Rowe. I think I'm saying that, R-O-W-E. She was saying that back in Western Australia, they have 6 teams, but really only have enough players for 4 teams, and they play 9 sides. What's a really good first step that they should take in getting going? And is there something to forcing players to play where they live? Like at the league level, I guess she's asking, should the leagues be thinking about limiting where a player could play to help the teams recruit?
Well, for me, if you got a league with 6 teams, but really enough players for 4, then you might want to change the rules as far as being 11-on-11 or 9-on-9, or even going 5-on-5 or 6-on-6. See, that's the beauty of football. You know, you can rearrange the field based on your numbers. You know, you don't have to always do like American football and say we got to play 11s, or you play Canada, it's 12-on-12. I like the arena style, you know, where it's 7-on-7. You know, so again, if you don't have the numbers, then you got to conform and create your football league to accommodate the numbers that you have. Football is football. If you running it, catching it, you tackling, I don't care if it's 1-on-1 in the sandlot or if it's 11-on-11 on the football field. You create those rules and you make the system work for you.
Great, thanks, Coach.
Okay. All right. Go back to the last slide for one quick second. I think I had something I want to touch on. If not, then we'll go back to the slide. All right. So we talk about introducing staff and then highlighting. You're good. Let's move on. Okay. So now we want to build a positive team culture. And I think, OJ, you talked about this as far as the inner circle of some of the players. And this is where I kind of, had to draw some lines. I got bashed upside the head, not literally, but the fact was that, my football team wasn't a pickup joint. It wasn't a pickup bar. We're a family. We're a unit. We're out here to play. And I set the tone early because I wanted to keep it positive, because we all know that if anything happens between those who are together before they came out to football and then during the football, there's a lot of things that happen, then it eats up at the team, because now that's two people that's not coming to practice because of issues. So we try to set that tone, okay? We try to keep our culture about football, okay? Leadership sets the tone and must be the example as coaches and players. No coach on my team was dating any of the players, okay? And that's been one of the biggest issues with women's football, okay? That's just not the culture of football. Even though people don't want to say it, I've been the one who said it all along. We're out here to play football. We're out here to be a family. We're out here to go win together, okay? Now, what you do outside of football, that's on you because you're an adult. So that's part of the culture. You got to create the culture, okay? Don't be exclusive. Everyone should have the opportunity to play. If you got 27 girls and you might have eight of them that are real good, but you got to utilize the other 19, be it special teams. You got to put, as a coaching staff, you got to put the players in the best position possible to help you. Okay.
So, Coach, we got a really, really good question from Ashley Regis. How do you recommend holding players who are impacting the culture negatively accountable? Since culture is such a huge part of recruiting, how do you enforce these things with your team?
Well, that's what the letter of agreement's all about. I set the tone by stating my 10 rules or whatever, and there's consequences. If you want to break the rules, then these are going to be the consequences. For me, a good example, because we had low turnout sometimes for practice. Well, we only practice 2 days a week. If you miss one practice, I don't care what the excuse is. If you miss practice, you don't play that first quarter. If you miss both practices, you don't play the first half and you might not play at all. And that's understood because we're adults, we got lives, right? So you got to be an enforcer. You're not going to always be liked as a head coach or as an owner, as long as you got those rules on paper and everybody understands it. I'm not making them up as I go. These are the rules that we went over. This is what we got to go by, but it goes back to making it fun. The reason why there's low turnout in practices is because people are just sitting around, or the coaches are just giving the best players the reps, as JK talked about. She's one of those players that likes a lot of reps. If she's not on special teams, she pull another coach to the side and they work on other things. So you got to make practice fun. If you make it fun and they're working hard, they don't know they're working hard because they're having so much fun. Okay. And you got to have integrity, and follow through to what you say. You got to be a person of your word. Okay. That's the most important part. You can't be getting caught up in lies and saying to one player, oh, you're not starting. Then when it's game time, they're starting. I mean, something has to happen in order for that person to start. There's situations where it might happen, but you can't tell somebody he's not going to start. And then all of a sudden game starts and then you put them in there because now the rest of your team don't trust you anymore. And I've done that to my best players. I stick to the rules. These are the rules you sign. These are the rules you understand. Okay. And then have a system of communication between your players and coaches, be it emails, be it a group chat, be it a Facebook group room, or whatever. And it needs to be about football. Okay. A lot of us have these chat rooms and it's about everything else but football. Okay. I'm not trying to promote whatever else is going on. I'm a football coach. I'm a football owner. So I want to promote football. So if you want to have another chat and talk about what's going on this weekend, what club we're going to, you need to start another chat room. I don't want to be a part of that chat room. Okay. We got to keep it football. So again, building a positive team culture is very important.
Yep. Hey, Coach, we got a great question from Brazil. Anna Claudia, I think I'm not even going to try and say the last name. Goncalves.
Yes.
Anna's saying they play 11-on-11 full game. The league made some rules that teams can't play if they have less than 25 players for the game. And I think this speaks to recruiting. What do you think about at the league level and what the league should be doing about making sure that teams have the right amount of players before they can step out on the field?
I think it's very important that you have enough players. Injuries come. You're one play away from not playing anymore. And part of that is if you don't have enough players. And that's where it becomes, are you a serious league? Are you really trying to promote that this as the top level? I can't go play a team. I got 53 players, and then you come to the table with 14. That ain't going to work. The team with 14, yeah, you played with heart, but the bottom line is either you're going to stop the game because your players are getting hurt or you're getting blown out 70-0. Okay? So again, for those teams to be rec teams, there's different levels of football. In the men's game, you got high school, you got college, you got 4 different levels of college. If you include JC, that's 5 levels. You got semi-pro all over the place. But see, for women, there's only one level, be 18 years of age, and then you can play. Okay, but now we got to determine, are we going to be a serious league or are we going to be a recreational league? A recreational league will go ahead and say, yeah, you got 14 to 25 players. Okay, we're recreation. We're out here to have fun. But when you're talking about serious competition, you got to have the numbers. If you want to be a true football player, you got to go through true football practices, as we talked about with JK, 11-on-11s. You got to go 7-on-7s. You need 9-on-7. You need 1-on-1s in order to get better. So the more athletes, the better. Okay. I hope that answered that question, but leagues should determine, are we trying to be a professional league or are we trying to be a rec league? And that's what we have to determine. I've been a part of this for 15 years, and that's been the biggest argument. You got different tiers, different levels. It's hard to compete because you're trying to play regionally and you just accommodate, well, that team got 17 players. At least that's a game. That might not be the right thing. So going back to recruiting, you got to get the numbers up. Trust me, there's 100 women in your 50-mile radius of where you're located that want to play. It's getting the word out, doing the marketing, doing the promotions that you get them out there. Then retaining them is 1, having a great coaching staff, and 2, they're learning and having fun at the same time. All right. Threw me off a little bit. Can you go back to the last slide to make sure I covered everything on that last slide before we go into the next one? Nope, the other way. There we go. One more. All right, so we talked about coach. Yeah, we talked about communication. So the last thing with coaches, we got to be able to communicate with our coaches. If my players couldn't come to practice, they still need to let me know, hey, coach, I can't come to practice because, again, if I'm doing what JK was talking about, which was putting a practice plan together, if my starting quarterback is not there, then guess what? It just blew my whole practice plan. So as a coach, I had to have a plan A and a plan B and then an impromptu because you didn't know who was showing up, okay? So again, got to have a system of communication between players and coaches. We can go to the next one. All right. So part of me not being involved in women's football for the last 4 or 5 years out front was because I'm study working on trying to make sure that we replenish our athletes. We have to create a feeder system within our area. How are you going to keep women still participating when they don't know about you? So what you got to do is you got to create something during the off-season activities, okay? You need to get involved with other youth sports programs. Nobody said you got to start your own, but there's other youth programs within your area that might have flag football, that might have basketball, that might be track and field. You want to showcase yourself as an athlete because you probably grew up running track and you just happen to be playing flag football now. I mean, tackle football now. So you want to go back to those systems and say, hey, you know, I also play football and track has helped me. You know, you want to go back and volunteer. You want to be a referee. Okay. You want to do those things. Okay. For me, I look at it this way. In order for young ladies or young girls to understand the sport, they need to see the sport. They need to play the sport. So that's why we created what you see in the background, the Girls Football Association, where we're creating opportunities for girls to at least start playing flag football, because it's hard for parents to allow their daughters to play football because in society, girls aren't supposed to play football in their mind, but they're athletes. And that's how I train all my athletes, as athletes, not as males, not as females, but as athletes. So with that being said, we got 120 teams nationwide. If each team created an avenue for girls to be able to play flag football, at least to start from ages 6 to 17, now you're creating not only your fan base, not only are you working with the next coming up athletes, but you're getting the girls to fall in love with the game called football. Just like I was able to fall in love at the age of 5. I hated the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I was a Lynn Swann fan because he went to USC, my favorite college. And I played quarterback with number 88 because I wanted to be Lynn Swann. I wanted to be O.J. Simpson. I wanted to be Charles White. That's what these young ladies need to see. They need to see some Odessa Jenkins and some Jessica Springers and some Carrie Walters of the world, okay? That's why I'm so passionate about the game and really pushing the women that are good and putting them in the spotlight so that other young ladies can look up to those ladies and say, I want to be like her. I want to do it like her. I want to be better than her, okay? So now you're building up young athletes for health and fitness. It creates a feeder system. If you're going to be here for longevity, you got to have a feeder system. Think about it. High schools have Part 1 of football teams. That's their feeder systems. Colleges, be it JC, D1, D2, D3, NIAA, whatever, they have high schools as their feeder systems. The pros have colleges as their feeder system. Where is the feeder system for women's football? See, you got to think bigger than just today. And I spoke to a lot. I've coached over 250 women over the 15 years for my team. And they only thought about themselves playing today, not thinking about athletes for tomorrow. And I think as women football players and as pioneers, you're not going to benefit. You're not going to benefit from the things that are going to be created 10, 15, 20 years from now, okay? Women's football has gotten a lot better over the last 15 years, trust me. But it had to start somewhere. Think about the NFL. It was a joke to play NFL football in the 40s and 50s. In the 60s, those guys in the 70s, they played during the season and still had jobs during the offseason. It wasn't until the 80s that somebody made $1 million. And now we're talking about $35 to $40 million a year now. So it takes time.
Hey, Coach, we got a good kind of recommendation from Billy Avalos from La Muerte down in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And maybe you can touch on this. A lot of organizations in women's football are still not-for-profit organizations, so they're still building to be able to make a profit. And so one way that they kind of do it down there in New Mexico is they connect it with local nonprofits. So whether it be, there's a Got Our Back program that the WNFC has, which is a nonprofit associated with the league for highlighting girls that play in predominantly boys sports, particularly football. What have you seen over the years work in terms of nonprofits connecting together to help build pipelines for girls connected to the teams?
Well, nonprofits are great. I mean, I'm a nonprofit here with the GFA. The issue is the support. of the nonprofit. You know, everybody thinks that because you're nonprofit that you got money coming in. Yes, there's a lot of grants out there. You got to shift through and find them. But see, for a sport like this, women's football or female football, as we're going to put it in general, it has to be supported by those who play. Like I said, you're not going to benefit necessarily as the forefront or the mother of the sport, but you have to give back. And that's one thing as a male football player, you'll see this happen all the time where a player will play high school, might go to college and play, but they always come back to do what? They coach Pop Warner football or high school football to give back for the love of the sport. So with these nonprofits, yes, they're out there, but they're tapped, meaning that they're not getting enough support. And then when they do get the money, they distribute it amongst many different avenues. Okay. My particular nonprofit is strictly about football and football only for girls. Okay. And our mission is to get all the high schools to sanction flag football as a varsity sport, which is a Title IX issue. Some of you young ladies that are out there might know of Title IX, you might not know. But the fact is, that is our way of getting it in. I went in initially to try to get tackle football as a sanctioned sport for girls. No administrator would listen to us because they thought that was really weird, even though I had some of my players show up to the school. But we got them to buy into the high school. And next thing you know, we're the #1 sport for girls in Nevada, well, in Las Vegas. There's over 3,000 girls that play flag football. It helps the numbers for Title IX. We outdo basketball, and we played basketball and flag football at the same time. And it's not even a scholarship opportunity sport. So it goes back to the nonprofit. What is the purpose of the nonprofit? And is it benefiting us in the women's football world? Because that's what we need to care about. That's what we need to push. It's not very hard for the mission that we're asking is each team that's out there, no matter what league you're in, you're part of a school district. Why not go talk to the athletic director? Why not show them that girls play flag football, that's your fan base? You know, why not join GFA? So it's, again, those are the things that we have to get together as a women's football community. You know, when I was in it, it was a fight about who's the biggest league, who's the best league. When it was a couple of teams in this league, a couple of teams in that league that really made the league because they were good. But, you know, the other 75% of the teams weren't really up to snuff. Now I see the change. You know, we're trying to build that. But you still got to build a fan base. You still have to build a feeder system, okay? You young ladies ain't getting no younger. OJ, I remember you when you played on the Diamonds, when you played on the Mustangs, because I played against you. I know time has moved on. Now you're coaching, and that's the great thing about this, because you can always put yourself in another position. But think about it. We have to bring in the younger generation. And the only way we're going to bring them in is provide feeder systems for them and support those nonprofits that are having the same mission that we have. Instead of worrying about who's first, who's the best, we need to look at the overall picture of where is women's football going. You know, I was an outsider. I always thought outside the box. You know, when I said, let's create a women's football camp and conference, everybody laughed. I put my money up and I hosted 3 in a row, 2007, 2008, 2009, to get women football team owners to understand, are you in this to be professional? Is this a real business or is this a hobby? So are you a hobbyist or are you a business person? And those things went well. Was it supported by everybody? No. Was it supported by every league? No. But once USA Football got involved, guess what they wind up doing? They wind up doing the same camp and conference that I was doing and charging a lot more because it was tied in or affiliated with. You know, it's not about who's the biggest and the best. It's can we get together and work together as a nonprofit to make things happen and move forward. I think I see another question here about seasonal things, about rugby players. You're going to come across that. You know, for me, football season has always been the fall for me, in the fall. But it's also the hardest time to find fields, It's also the hardest time to find practice facilities because not only are you trying to do it as a women's football team and organization, you got multiple youth organizations out there, you know, doing needing the fields, and you got high schools needing the fields. That it kind of pushed us out of the fall and moved us into the spring. With it being in the spring, now we're competing with other spring sports, be it track and field, be it softball, be it soccer, and those things. So you're going to be competing against other sports. It's just a matter of going out and just continues to recruit. Marie, that was a good question. You know, you just have to work with it. And you might have a person who plays rugby, and you might have to say, okay, we want you on the team. When can you practice? You know, can you make it to this practice? Can you make it to this game? And as an organization, you might have to accept the fact that they're not going to be at every game, or they're not going to be at every practice. And that's something that you have to work out with within your organization. You know, but you're going to always be competing. You know,
Hey,
again,
Dion, this is
I
Bo.
can
Can you
talk
hear me?
forever. I mean, I do 4 quarters with Coach Lee. I can talk 2, 3, 4 hours because this is what I'm passionate about. And like I said, if you need to contact me again here on the screen, again, Dion Lee, I can reach at 702-874-8058. You can hit me up by email at dlee.gfa@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram, building up my following over there. Even though my kids laugh at me talking about, Dad, you too old to be on Instagram. I'm on TikTok too. I just don't know my information. But again, I'm always available. You can reach out to me. This presentation is also gonna be able to be emailed out. You can go to the league. So that should be cool. I just think
Other
this
than
is
that,
great,
Dion,
you know?
can you hear? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, we had some technical issues on OJ, so I went ahead and took over the last part of it. Is there any more questions out there in the internet world? Dion, you did a great job today, man. Appreciate your time and effort on the recruiting spotlight, and also Jennifer talking about practice schedules as well. One thing that you want to leave the group with, Dion, right now, go ahead and kind of last thought for the day.
Okay. Well, my thing, as far as my topic is concerned, recruiting. Recruiting is 365. It's an everyday thing, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 52-1. You have to recruit. And even when the season is over with, during the season, you're recruiting. You're inviting people to the games to showcase your talents and your presentation of your team to recruit those players to play for you next year. So I never stop recruiting. I'm recruiting every day. I'm in a grocery store. I got a flyer on me. I got a business card. I got something that says I'm tied into a football team that I want you to possibly think about. Invite people to practice. Those are the best things that you can do as a recruiter. It's in my blood. I like to promote. I like to talk.
Well, that's great. I definitely appreciate you being a part of it. OJ, did you join back with us? No, she did not. I wasn't sure if I heard of.
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Coach.
great.
Yeah. So.
You got anything else for me?
No. Thank you so much, Coach. I really appreciate it. I think the one thing I want to make sure that I said is just thank you, because I think that it's super important when people give back to this sport. As you said, women's football has come a long way. In some ways similar to all other sports, men's football, basketball, volleyball, whatever, some things stay exactly the same. And there's some things about this sport that we want to stay the same. And that's how much of a family it is and how a lot of the pioneers of the sport are still in the sport. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate you.
We got one more question that's important. It looked like, how do you feel about recruiting across state lines? Right now, I wouldn't like it, but if that player feels that organization is better, then to each their own. We're adults. We're going to make up our own mind and our decision, And if a player is willing to travel 300 miles to go practice 2 days a week and play, that's on them. And that means at home you should be finding a better culture and the reason why people are traveling over state lines. And that could be your coaching staff. That could be the way you run your business. It could be a lot of things. You got to look internally. That's just life. In corporate America, they're always recruiting the best marketing person, the best accountants. If the money is talking, people tend to move and go. So I don't have no issue with that. That's just part of the game. It's called recruiting. The best of the best go play where the best are. And the best recruiters recruit the best players, and they wind up winning. I'm a competitor. I don't think nobody can out-recruit me if I chose to go out there and recruit all the players. That's just me. But I'm
all right,
I'll be
Dion, thank you so much.
Yeah.
OJ,
Thank you so
one
much.
last plug about what
yeah.
tomorrow's going to involve.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Dion. I challenge you to that top recruiter award, by the way. I'd love to battle you on that one, man. No, but I think that tonight was super valuable. Like I said, I think we say a lot of times that we wish I wish that as a young player that we have a lot of what these players are getting, but I think Dion made the biggest point that what you are doing today might not be for you. So in terms of recruiting players or coaches or bringing people in your organization, as you said, being the mother of the thing, birthing it and then watching it go out and grow. I say all the time that what we're building might not be for us. We might not be the one that takes it to the next level, but as long as we're building the building blocks, that's what matters. So speaking of building blocks, the treat for tomorrow is going to be something that I don't think a lot of us have expertise in. So I'm like salivating to listen to Rick Rasmussen talk about the triple option offense and how he has drove defensive coordinators crazy for the last, I don't know if it's 7 or 8 years. So I'm excited to hear about that. That's tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Time. We're going to be starting sharp. So get your friends. Share it all across social media, everywhere you are, and let them know that tomorrow we're going to get some expertise from the king of the triple option down there in Utah.
OJ, thank you so much, and look forward to that as well.
All.
And thank you for everybody asking questions.
Thank you both so much again for a great night. It was a great technical night. I appreciate you. Nobody else is doing it like this, man. You make us unique, you make us special, and you keep us in first place and keep people chasing us. So thank you so much for all you do to make sure that the WNFC looks the part. And thank you to all the fans and players and coaches who watched tonight, who submitted your questions. Thank you for coming to camp. All the people from all over the world who tuned in. Tune in tomorrow. Stay with us. We're going to take off Sunday, but we'll be back up on Monday. So tomorrow is going to be sort of our last session of the week, and we look forward to having you all. Bring your pen and pad because Coach Rick is something else. We look forward to y'all hearing that tomorrow. Thank you for your time.
Good night, OJ.
Good night.